Hello out there. Tonight I've been commissioned to make a sledgehammer handle on the copying lathe. And that's perfect because I have the pattern for a sledgehammer. The only difficulty is this isn't your everyday sledgehammer. This is a big old wampus hammer. This is a big rectangular girthy old one with a very large eye. And the trouble is this pattern, how can I show you? That pattern going into that eye leaves more than 1/4 inch on either end. And the little thin part here to take the spring out of the whacking, it's very thin, and we're going to need to beef that up just to be able to repeatedly lift this big wampus hammer. So the question comes to, how do you scale this machine? Because 1-to-1 is copying this pattern exactly on the wood. But this follower bar here, there's 2 set screws, and you can loosen that off and pull it out. And that will mean that the scale of this, this pattern will be smaller than the finished product. And the other way, if you move it in, you'll get a scaled down, proportionally reduced finished product. So last time I had this thing set up was for spokes, wagon spokes for a display at a local fair. And there's one of the spokes, and you always need to make it a little bit oversized so that you can take it to the shaving horse and use a draw knife and smooth it out after. Like this here, the draw knife, this one has a curve and a flat, and you just smooth out all the ridges left by that cutter. And I also realized that spending time on the shaving horse with a draw knife first to take the corners off the starting stock really saves time, and it reduces the amount of the tall corners really hit on the edges of the knives, and that doesn't sound good. It kind of gets, it's not ideal. So take that off, and then that's a partially made spoke. And I've made hatchet handles, and this one is a perfect example of scale. This was a 1-to-1, but because of the highs and lows, all the ridges, the amount of material that have to be taken off to make this smooth would make this handle well too small to actually fit in the eye of a hatchet. So, that said, there is no real scale, there's no register on this thing. There would be nice, I'd like to make a little linear ruler thing that had, okay, this is 1/4 scale, this is blah, blah, blah. There is none. So I'll loosen those set screws, pull it off to where it feels nice, and then start taking a trial cut. Also, the carriage, the tailstock has to be moved back to fit the larger sledge. And it always starts at the drive end. So we'll be starting by cutting where the eye is. So that'll be our gauge for the rest of the thing. So it has to move back, and yeah, I'll pop that on there, show you the adjustments, and we'll try cutting one up. I'm using nice, dry, ash, straight grain as I could find. Hickory would be better, but can't find it. 1/4 sawn would be best. This is going to be vertical grain, but that's the best we can do. So let's see what we can get up to. Okay, so to adjust the tailstock, there are 2 screws that kind of clamp a dovetail, which is this base, and yeah, 1 nut, 1 screw, kind of funky. This whole thing has been cobbled together pretty well, so I'm just making do with it. So there you can see it got a bit loose, and I will get this just roughly to figure where to bring it. I need a good 8-10 inches. How about that? Need another maybe 3 inches. Not too much. Right there. Yeah, that'll do. And then at that, I'll just confirm that my stock is going to fit in the right range as well. And the stock is going to be a bit long. That's all right. There's adjustment in this little center as well. So we'll knock it back another inch. Right there, and that'll be good. Just tighten those. Okay, now the thing that I often forget, the pattern has to go on this side of the follower. So this carriage is kind of funny in that it can completely wipe out. If you don't support it, it's normally held by gravity, just a little bit against the follower. And yeah, if you don't support it, it'll go bing and the whole thing will fall. It'll fall right off, right over like this. There's nothing stopping it. So I kind of lean it on myself there. And then we have the end with the 2 holes and the end with the single. So this locks into that far side, and then there's just a little hand wheel that I turn here. Just like a normal lathe tailstock. This little thing will come out. Little dead center. Right there. Oops. And then I'll make sure that goes out. This whole thing vibrates a lot, so you have to check from time to time that everything's still tight and nothing's like pushing this whole dovetail along. It'll start to chatter. If it gets loose, the center will kind of deflect a bit, and then you'll get gouges in your stock that you don't want, obviously. So once that's out and locked in at a good point where this is tight but not binding, then I will just tighten this little set screw on top of the tailstock, which is also what locates that center in a little key seat. And now I'll mark up the wood stock, and then we tighten it in place by this lever here with part of an old ring gear as the ratchet. Now to adjust the scale, things get kind of funny here, as I was saying. These are the 2 set screws, and I'm going to take it out maybe 3/16 of an inch. Maybe closer to 1/4, because I need lots of meat. As long as we get the rough profile, I can finesse it down on the shaving horse. But obviously you cut too much. So it's very important that these ones are particularly tight, because if they goof, the cutter will eat into your material real nicely. Not the best tool for the job. Adjustable wrench for everything. Okay, so that's a 1/4 inch out of the 1-to-1 ratio. So let's go over to the shave horse and rough out that stock. So we roughly took the corners off. I have 3 little holes for the 3 little pins on the driving side, and then 1 on the opposite. And you notice they're on the diagonal, and it just happens that could be the slop in the gears, I don't know. When this one is straight, this other little driver is slightly on a twist. So to actually have them line up right, I have to kind of put it on a bit off center. Like that, and then I'll just line it up with those spikes and give it a tap on the other end. So everything's rigged up. I did remember that it's best for the follower, which has already been built up with bronze over the years or brass, is to put a little bit of oil all along the pattern. And I'll just wipe it across a little bit so that as it feeds, it doesn't abrade the follower quite as much. And this thing is meant, well, as it goes, it should kind of lubricate itself, but this thing is meant to start at the far end, or the like the eye of the hammer, and then it'll work its way down that way. So I would just slide the whole carriage all the way till it's pretty well against the wall, and let it start. There, it's literally against the wall. And the first part is pretty important because I don't want to make the eye instantly too small. That would kind of beat the whole point for that very large eye portion. So to engage the drive, I've just been using a round file. It's, you know, typical misuse of a file because you're twisting it. But do it gently, and that pinches these two pieces here over the lead screw. So you see how those two kind of spin in and fall into the grooves, right, like that. So now the carriage is locked, and once I start to feed the wheel at the end of this screw, it'll start to pull it along. So let's fire up and see what happens. Oh, there we go. For the governor and the motor to kick in. Right away, I see trouble afoot. It's shaking the piece too much, which means that this is not holding it tight enough, so I'll have to get a better mallet and tap it back. I always wait for the tick in that repulsion induction type of motor. Now's the time to measure, and if it's a little bit small here, that's all right because the size of the pattern increases as it goes down to this little step. So as long as we have more meat here in it, visually it looks like it should be all right. How can I measure this? I'll just take this file to the head and put a little, hold my thumb, a little bit rudimentary, but hold that across. We're a bit small. We're a bit small. So I'll finesse it before we go any farther by leaning this back and very slightly pulling the follower arm out. And I can see that we're cutting all the way around, so there's meat. There is meat in the wood for me to do this. And ever so slightly, that's, I was talking about that scale before that I'm going to have to make to change this. I don't have one yet, so it's really a go by feel. Very, very gently. can see the steps each time where I change the scale of it. So here's what we're up to. And at this guy, thing, haha, we are at, and we're getting bigger because of the taper. Yeah, we're at 190, 1.9 inch. So that's good. That's perfect. Awesome. Happy, happy. So now we'll just plug away and get beyond that hump and see how the handle becomes once we get into this girth down here, if it's portioned right. So there we go. There we have it. Obviously it's an oversized handle, but it's for an oversized head. We can call it Big Joe's hammer or something. There it is. I can knock these off with the Lathe hatchet. And now, yeah, that's definitely oversized, that's for sure. Ultimately, we can always put this back on the machine and reduce its size for the body, but because all these grooves have to be taken off, and that does take some meat off sometime, I'm going to try to knock it down with a spoke shave first and see where that leaves us. This spoke shave is kind of a cool one with one flat and one curved blade. You can kind of switch it around as you go around the handle. Here's where we're at with the second pass. And a bunch of spoke shave smoothing action. Obviously, a little bit more could be done there. And then the stepped up thick part here to go through the eye. And so I've decided that I will partake in some unholy ways and use the electric belt sander. But there are still some cast iron parts in its base, so we're not technically cheating. Anyway, got a coarse belt on there. And I'll use that to shape this a bit better because I've been sitting there with a draw knife and this thing's been flicking every which way. So I'll have to make a V-block for that shaving horse. So we're close in thickness, but need quite a bit of finessing on the width and obviously to smooth out this step. Well, now here we are in a room full of dust and it's been worked down quite nicely. And I went ahead and split it with the hand ripping saw for the wedge. So, here's the head. It's marked on top. I'm going to put that mark facing up, but it looks like it says Warnock of Galt, Ontario. So, there that starts real easily. And just give it some knocks on the base. You can hear it. Hear that sound change. It's really bouncing the hammer there. So that should be seated. And I'm quite happy with that. There is some play for sure at the top on either end, which was expected because of that calibration situation on the machine. But I'm very happy with that indeed. So, and it's lined up well. All that remains is to put a hardwood wedge in it, split it apart, probably put some glue and then put some linseed oil on that handle. And I am very, very happy with that. Maybe rub it down with some sandpaper first, something like that. But there we are. There's changing the pattern and making a sledge handle on the duplicating lathe. Hope you enjoyed and see you next time.